Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Purposeful Conversations with me, Emee, here in the Pami Code Facebook community. And I'm really excited to talk to our special guest for today. I know that in this community, you are here because you are interested in personal development, you are interested in improving yourself, but we also understand that there is power in your thoughts. There's power in mindset. We talk about mindset in this community a lot. And so for today, we'll have a bit of a refresher and remind ourselves why we need to be mindful of our thoughts and why your thoughts are absolutely powerful and could really drive you forward in your life. So without further ado, let's all welcome today our life and mindset coach, Rida Bakhsh. Hi, Rida.
Hi, Emee. Thank you so much for having me on your recording, on your podcast. I'm really, really happy to be here.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I mean, here in our community, we do talk a lot about mindset, and people do forget sometimes. We are busy, we are doing a lot of things in life, and sometimes all these limiting beliefs will just creep in, and we forget to be mindful and to control our thoughts. But before we get into that discussion, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into this field?
Oh, I'd love to. So as you mentioned, I am Rida Bakhsh. I am a life and mindset coach. I'm also a mentor and a speaker. And so for me, I have a personal mission statement. And I feel especially as coaches, we should all have that. There's a business mission, but there's also a personal mission. And for me, it's to inspire, educate, and empower others so that they can become more self-aware, so that they can live their best possible life. And now for me, I primarily serve the woman who's stuck in caterpillar syndrome. And that's really it's when you want to grow, you want to change, but you don't know how, right? And so I have a very soft spot and strong motivation to help the woman that I was. And so that kind of leads back to your question, why did I get into this? Because of a lot of things that you said early on in the introduction, right? We suffer so much sometimes with self-limiting beliefs, esteem, all of these things that kind of hold us back. And that was me for so very long. And so going through my journey and going through the process, I really do want to help serve the people that haven't gone before me, that I've already gone through a lot of the bumps and bruises. So I want to give them the tools and strategies so that they can live a more purposeful life, because I am so not the woman that I was.
Oh, that's one. So from what you've said, it seems like you've been through quite a journey from
Yes.
where you were and where you are now. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, what were you? Like, what was the journey like? I mean, we see you right now, when you came onto the video, my first impression is, wow, you look so happy. This is not you before. What was that like before, the before and after?
Yes, if you saw me before, I was a completely different person. For so long, I would wear a mask. And I think a lot of us can be guilty of wearing a mask and allowing people to see a version of ourselves that we want them to see. But when we're really being honest with what's on the inside, it's a completely different story. And I was living in a state of negativity. I was always judgmental. I was thinking that I wasn't worthy of certain things. And what I realized was I kept manifesting the same outcomes. Even though I was making different decisions, the outcomes always led me to the same place. So the short version of my story is I call myself a recovering people pleaser because I always put everybody else first and myself last. And I always wanted to be there for everyone else. And so I found myself in a situation where I encountered a freak accident. I walked into a bar fight and I ended up being hit with a beer mug.
Oh,
And
wow.
it caused 27 stitches down my face.
You just walked into a bar and there was a bar fight.
Well, as far as being my people pleaser, I said to my brother, if you ever need a ride because you're too intoxicated to drive, please call me. I want to be there for you. I was always thinking of other people. So I put myself in a situation where I walked in and unfortunately, I did get hit and I was injured. I had
Blood
27
everywhere. Yeah.
stitches down my face. I mean, that night I was literally covered in my own blood. And I will tell you, going through this experience, I mean, it really affected my mindset. Back then, I didn't even know what mindset was. But mindset is really the way that, our brain sees ourselves and the world. And it was pity party for one for so many years, Emmy. People after this accident, close people in my circle would say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You used to be so pretty." Or you used to be this and you used to be that. And so I allowed those feelings to internalize, and I started to believe it. And I didn't think I was worthy. I felt like damaged goods. It affected every single relationship in my life. Being a daughter, being a sister, being an employee, everything. And even when I would meet, men, just talking to them, I felt the need to preface with, "Hey, by the way, I have this on my face," because it was a defense mechanism. I didn't
Did it
feel
actually matter? Why were you, yeah, why are you saying that?
it mattered to me that this is how I felt. I felt like back then, this physical scar defined who I was. And that's so not the case, right? But it took me, I had to go through a learning journey and my own path to realize that, because I was not in a good place. I was really, like I said, I'm pity party for one. I couldn't get out of this perpetual cycle. I mean, as you well know, the brain, right? We have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And if you keep thinking negative thoughts, it's on
It
this
will be
perpetual.
magnified. Yeah, that's what will be perpetuated for the rest of your day, your week, or it just ripples.
It's such a ripple effect. It's a domino effect. And so there were so many things that held me back. And I just did not look at the world in rose colored glasses. I didn't think that everything was going to be okay. I felt like the world was happening to me. But in actuality, everything that's happening, it's for us, not to us.
Mm-hmm.
So, but to add to that story, so a couple of years later, I was able to, I decided I wanted to be better, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to be better. But I was getting out. I was being more social because I was a recluse for a couple of years. But then I remember it so clearly, 3 days before Christmas, then I encountered an accident and I was thrown from the vehicle and I encountered severe road rash. And once again,
Another accident. What was
another.
going on? How long ago did this happen, Rida?
This was about 20 years. So
Okay.
it's been about 20 years. But the beautiful thing about this second story is the first one, I was down in the dumps for so long. I mean, even suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety, all of it. The second accident, because I had already made the decision that I wanted to be better, I started to read books, I started to watch videos. So even though I felt like my thoughts kind of manifested the same outcome, my mind was different.
Mm.
So I was in a physical state where I couldn't do a lot because I had to heal, and it was a long journey. However, I was different because my mind was different, and I was so excited for what the future.
It was almost like you were being tested, that you made up your mind to actually, okay, I'm gonna get better. Okay, let's see if you're serious about this. Here you go. And actually, yeah, you were.
And I was, you know what, you nail that exactly on the head, because I felt like here is a real life example. I said I wanted to be different, so how am I going to be different? It would have been so easy for me to default mode and go right back into that pity party and feel sorry for myself, but I didn't. I
Mm.
didn't. I was completely different. And then, and that's ultimately everything that I've been through led me to where I am today. So this is one of the main reasons I have such a passion and a motivation to help other people. Because sure, not many people get hit with a bar mug or you get thrown from a car. I mean, that's Tuesday. No,
Mm.
a lot of people don't have that. But what they do have are the limiting beliefs and the mindset issues and all of those things. And that's something, I was deep in the trenches, and I am
Mm.
so not that girl anymore.
Well, I suppose in your case, you actually did experience physical trauma. For a lot of other people, they might be, they might have experienced a different kind of trauma, maybe emotional abuse or whatever. But in terms of healing, it is quite difficult to heal when you have those mindset blocks that's not letting you to actually heal and move forward. In your case, what sort of prompted you to say that, okay, I've had enough, I need to get better? Is there a particular point which led you to make that decision, or was it just gradual?
So it was a lot of, so I highlighted, some of the bigger, impacts, the accidents, of course. There were a lot of things kind of peppered in and sprinkled in along the way, but I was just tired of feeling that way, tired of the self-defeat, tired of always, feeling sad, wanting to be different, but not knowing how. And so many times we will take the lessons we learned from our parents, right? And we use that as the blueprint on how to live our own lives. And that can serve us well unless we're not getting the outcomes that we want. So I felt like I was in a box for the majority of my life. I felt like I already had a ceiling and I wanted to break that. I wanted to be different. So just wanting to be different and then realizing everything that I was doing, I wasn't being different, made me realize that, okay, massive change is going to require massive action.
Mm.
There was one day, I mean, it's something very small, but one day I was at the doctor's office. And are you familiar with the book, Chicken Soup for the Soul?
Yes, Jack
Yes,
Canfield.
love him, right? So I'm sitting there waiting in the doctor's office. And of course, back then there were no cell phones. So I wasn't playing Candy Crush or anything. I had to pick up a book.
Wow. Those were the days.
Exactly. So as I sat there and waited for them to call my name back, I'm reading these stories, one after one of these beautiful compilation of short stories, and it completely changed my perspective. And that was the one and only time I didn't want them to hurry up and call my name. Like I wanted to sit there and keep reading
And
the book.
well, I assume you bought your own copy after that.
As soon as I left
Like
the
the
doctor's
whole
office,
series, as the whole collection.
there is a whole collection, but it was that original one,
Mm.
so that one story about the starfish, the boy's walking along the shore and he's picking up, there's, hundreds of starfish on the shore and he's picking them up, throwing them back into the water one by one. And, a bystander walks up and says, why are you
We're
doing
doing
that? Yeah, you're not going to make a difference. And he picks it up, throws another one in, and he said it made a difference to
to
that one.
that one.
Yes, you know the story well. That story, as small as it is, made such a huge impact on my life. And that was the beginning of my personal development journey. That's when I realized that there is a different way to look at the world and to perceive myself. And that's how, it really started. That's when the light went off.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, for some people, they will go through trauma, they will feel the pain. It
Mm-hmm.
does take a bit of time for them to make that conscious decision to get better. And in
Right.
your case, you did have that moment where you made that decision. You had another hurdle, but because you were so determined to actually get better, you carried on despite the obstacles that would probably hinder you from getting better. So that happens sometimes. You make a decision, there's a block. Some people might give up. It's like, it's too hard. I'm just gonna go back to how I used to. But because of the power of your mindset, where you were determined to actually get better, that actually powered you through. So that shows, that actually shows at the start of our conversation, I said, we're going to talk about the power of your thoughts. And that, that's a really clear example of how important your mindset is. How important your mindset is, and how important it is for you to actually be mindful of your thoughts and then couple that with action. So one of the things that you started doing was you started reading books, you learned about personal development. Are there other things that you did to start to help you to get better?
Yes, there were a couple of things that, we all have different ways and different, tips that work for different people. But for me, first thing is I had to get everything that was in here out. I had to put
Mm.
it on paper. For so many of us, as we talked about, we have upwards to 80,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot. And sometimes when
Mm.
we get anxiety or we're feeling overwhelmed, it's because we're not managing our minds very well. And I felt like I lived in a state of that for way too long.
You're
So
just holding it and processing it. It's gonna drive you crazy because it's a lot to handle.
it is. And especially if you're full of negative thoughts and you're trying
Mm.
to battle, like you want to be better, you don't know how to be better. So that's like an internal struggle, right? And that can be really painful for a lot of people. So for me, like you said, I mean, our brain is a processor. It's not a database. It's not meant to store all of that information. So I would journal. I would take
Mm-mm.
everything out of my brain on a daily basis, and I would do a thought transfer where I take it out and I would write it down, and I would organize my thoughts. And as the more I started to do that, I noticed a change. Then I started to introduce gratitude, right? So every day I would think about three things specific, right? Three things I was really thankful for, and I would write that down. And so I started to do that on a daily basis. And then I started to set intentions. I do that along with affirmations. And over time, the brain is such a beautiful thing. And, thanks to neuroplasticity, like we're able to actually
You can
create new
retrain
plans,
it. Yeah.
which I think is so fascinating. I'd love to have more conversations with you, especially with your background. But I just think that the beauty of being able to create new neural pathways in our brain, like even though we have some unhealthy thought patterns, right? We have the ability to make that change, but we just have to be willing to, one, be honest with yourself on what you're really thinking, take that mask off, write down who you are, what you want to be, and then you can actively take those steps to getting there.
I love it. I mean, your steps are actually really clear, and they're quite practical. And as far as what we practice here in the community, we have a lot of similarities, mainly because these are the practices that actually work. So what you said about being aware and getting it out, we always talk about inner critic messages in this community, and I tell my followers, you don't really have to suppress it, and you don't even need to have a fight with your inner critic. You actually need to get it out and be aware that
Yes.
these thoughts actually exist. So whether it is journaling or whether it's going to a therapist, that's why talk therapy works, because you're actually getting, you're getting your thoughts out, and you're having someone else to guide you through, how do you navigate these thoughts and how do you get them out, you express them. And by being aware of what
Mm-hmm.
your thoughts are, you're actually able to find a way to shift it, and to see whether these thoughts are actually real, or whether
Right.
they're logical, whether they're destructive. Because once they are out, you can see that,
Yes,
okay, this is actually not serving me anymore. I think it's
exactly.
time to change it. And you've made that conscious decision to make that change. And when you got it out, it's
Mm-hmm.
there. You're
Right.
not just processing it with all the 60,000 thoughts that you have inside your head. It's just that, in your
Right.
case, on a piece of paper in your journal, or if you're having a session with a therapist, that could actually work. And I love that you also included gratitude, because
Mm-hmm.
I think with, especially since you followed, Jack Canfield, he talked about energy flows where attention goes. In that
Mm-hmm.
circle, they always talk about that. When you focus on the positive things and what you're grateful for, it,
Right.
it becomes magnified. When you focus on the negative things, you spiral into depression because your attention goes there. And but yeah, gratitude is absolutely, important, and you're intentional about that as well. It became a habit. How easy was it for you to incorporate that into your routine?
Well, because I did make the conscious effort that I wanted to be active about it, there were definitely some days that even though I set an intention, there were days that I didn't follow those intentions, and that's okay. Sometimes when we try to incorporate these new, patterns or these new routines, it can be really hard. And I find for a lot of my clients, sometimes when they set an intention, they don't follow through, they beat themselves up over
Mm.
it. And so what I like to tell them, and I invite others who are listening, even if it doesn't work out the way that you plan, be kind to yourself. Understand that that's part of the human emotion, the human, our path. Sometimes we're going to have highs, sometimes we're going to have lows. And just as you, Emmy, and just as myself, we both, it doesn't mean that our lives are perfect. It doesn't mean that we're always at 100% happiness or more. But when we do have the days where things don't work out, we have the tools to maneuver through and how to process those emotions.
Yeah, and I have to
So,
say, when we have our down moments, I think for the people that I've been interviewing, mindset coaches, life coaches, they actually do acknowledge that they are not perfect. They acknowledge that they sometimes feel fear, they sometimes feel angry, they have self-doubt. But acknowledging that these emotions exist These
Mm-hmm.
emotions are part of your human experience. You don't really have to beat yourself up by feeling shame or guilt or whatever. It happens. It happens, but you embrace it, you acknowledge that this is how you're feeling, but you still,
Mm-hmm.
what they say again in these personal development field, they would say you still love, honor, and respect yourself even if
Mm-hmm.
you are imperfect. So yeah, we embrace that. We understand our limitations, we understand that we have down days sometimes, we embrace it, but we have the tools, we have the strategies so we don't get stuck. We
Mm-hmm.
have our ways to manage it and cope with it so we don't stay in that position for so long.
Right, I agree. And to build on that, you said something a little earlier about, managing your thoughts. And so it's so true when, if we're feeling a certain way, sometimes people think that it's based on your circumstance or your situation, but that's actually not the case. You are in control of how you want to feel about it, right? Because our thoughts control our feelings, control our actions. So even though I was thrown from a car, right? I couldn't control that circumstance, but what I could control was my thoughts around that. I was able to manage it and not look at it as something completely negative. I looked at, I mean, literally and figuratively, I hit rock bottom. I hit that cold, hard pavement. And I say it with a smile on my face because it's just part of my story. A lot of people, when you have a story that maybe you're embarrassed about or you feel ashamed, you hide it. Again, you wear the mask. Not me. I truly wholeheartedly believe that there is strength in vulnerability. And so, and my scars don't define me, whether that be physical or emotional. And so I implore all of your listeners that if you feel like you're hiding behind a mask, you know, take the mask off, be honest, be real with yourself, because once you really figure out who you are on the inside, that's where real sustainable change will happen, not when you're changing things, circumstances on the outside. So
Oh, wonderful. That's absolutely fantastic, Rita. And thank you for sharing your story with us. I mean, yeah, you've been through quite something. I know that it happened years ago, but I think those experiences happened for a reason. You are here where you are now because of those experiences. And it actually helped you to keep your joy, your happiness sustainable. You had to go through that pain, through depression and anxiety, and I'm sorry that you also had suicidal thoughts because of what you've experienced. But in the end, you actually understood the power of your mind, the power of your thoughts, and you carry that through, and now you have happiness. You can sustain that happiness even if your life isn't perfect. Even if you don't have happy days all the time, you are still able to navigate and manage your emotions because you're able to manage your thoughts.
exactly, perfectly said.
Awesome. Well, Rita, if people want to connect with you, if they want to reach out and learn more about you, where can they find you?
So I have a business Facebook page, and so thank you for telling me I need to update that. But it is Rida Bakhsh dash Life and Mindset Coach, and I also have a group for designed for women. So as I mentioned in the beginning, Emmy, that I have a soft spot for the woman that I was. So I just created and launched this community for women who feel like they're stuck in that caterpillar syndrome and they actually want some tools and strategies in order to help change and grow. So I implore them to please check that out. And then of course I am on social media. In your show notes, are you able to put a link?
Oh
My
yeah,
last
we
name is a
can
little
put all
tricky.
we can put all of the links in the description so people can actually visit your business page, visit your group, and also follow you on social media. So where is the best, how can they connect with you? What's the best way to connect with you?
So the best way to connect with me would either be through Instagram or through my Facebook business page. But honestly, any way that you want to connect, if you want to join and be connected and allow me to help you along your journey, you can connect with me any way you want. So my name is Rida Bakhsh, and so the last name is a little tricky, and you'll have it in the show notes. But my website is, ridabakhsh.com, and my community is transition to destination. Because honestly, we are all in transition to somewhere, but where? So
Awesome.
that is something that I like to help my my clients with.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Rida. I really do appreciate you sharing your story and sharing your insights about how, how powerful your mind can be. And in your case, even with those two accidents, you made your decision to make a change, and bam, you have another hurdle. But you actually surpassed that because you've made that conscious decision to actually heal. And it shows the value of your mindset, and why it is
Yes.
so important for you to be mindful of your thoughts, for you to be able to control your thoughts, be intentional about what you want, and go for it, because that would help you to navigate your emotions as well, and also influence your behavior. So that's it, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in today. I hope that you found value from our conversation with Rida today. But until then, we'll catch up again next time for another purposeful conversations with me, Emmy, here in the Pammy Code Facebook group. Until then, take care and bye for now. Bye.